I've opened up another image. It's the castle image, the castle.cr2 image. And I want to show you how to use some of these other tools up here to edit this photo. The first thing I want to show you is the crop tool. So that when I click the crop tool, you get a crop option. To click and hold this down, you see what your options are for cropping. You have normal, which allows you to crop any aspect, any size. And when you click and drag, it creates that size. If I want a specific aspect ratio, just click and hold and choose that aspect ratio, or create a custom one. So say I want a very, very wide image, then I would do 10:1 or something like that. And that would create this size image that is 10:1. 10 being the width, 1 being the height. And you could always undo it by going to set original crop. But say I just choose 3:4 and I want to get in here on the castle a little bit. I can then click in the middle, move it around. I can resize this. I can rotate it if I want. I don't want to rotate it yet though, because I want to show you how to do something cool with the next tool. And then when you're happy with your crop, just press the return key. You can always go back and recrop it by selecting the crop tool. The next tool I want to show you is the straighten tool. If I choose this and then I click and drag in my photo, it will use however I click and drag to straighten the photo. The way you want to click and drag is you want to create a line along the horizon of your image or of whatever is straight in your image. You can see in this image that the castle is a little bit crooked. It's a little bit leaning to the right, it looks like. But if I draw this line along this castle wall, like so, where the castle wall looks straight according to the line, and let go, it will rotate the crop. You see that it just rotated the crop. And then if I press enter, it rotates the image and crops it so that the image itself is straight. Before it was rotated, and now it's straight. Very cool option. So remember, just use this tool, click and drag along the actual horizon of the image. We have this transform tool, which it's a kind of a funky tool, but once you open that, you get all of these other options over here. You can kind of warp your image if you want to get super creative. Honestly, I don't really use this. The next two tools are spot removal and red eye removal. Red eye removal, this is where you shoot with a flash and you get that red eye flash look in people's eyes. You use that to remove it. And the spot removal will remove blemishes like pimples or any blemishes that you want to get rid of on someone's face or really anywhere in a photo. So I'll just show you what that would look like here. So say we think that this window down here is a blemish. We can change the size of our brush over here and then just click in that area. What happens is it then takes another part of this image and uses it to blend in that selection that you made before and makes it fixed and removes that spot. So I can then take and drag this green circle to an area where I want it to take from so that it looks good. So if I take it up here in the trees, you can see that it adds the trees. But I want it to be in a part of the wall where there's not really anything going on, where there's no window. And then just press return on your keyboard when you're done. You can play with the opacity of this spot healing brush. And you can see if I drag all the way to the left, you can see, oh, there's that window that we just got rid of. Under type, there is heal and clone. Heal is kind of a smart way to do it. It takes this image in the green and it blends it into the red. With clone, it just takes this exact image that's in the green and copies it over there. For most things, you'll want to use the heal option. Now, if I go back, I have an image with this castle without that window. But if I go back and click this spot brush or the heal brush, I can select this and delete it just by pressing delete on my keyboard. I'm going to skip these three really quickly and just quickly go over. Here's your rotate options. So if you want to rotate to the left or right, you have your preferences right there. I leave these all the same. And then we have these different adjustment brushes or adjustment options, which allow us to edit a specific part of an image. The adjustment brush allows us to paint onto our image an area that we want to adjust. So when I click this, I get this big brush. I can change the size of this brush by going down to the very bottom of these adjustment options over here and changing the size down here. You got the size feathering right there. And then you see here all these different options that are similar to the basic adjustments that we made in the previous lessons. I'm going to crank up the exposure so you can see what's happening when I brush on. So say I want to, actually I'm going to decrease the exposure. Say I want to make the sky darker. I can literally just paint onto the sky this adjustment. And then when I let go, just get the whole sky. When I let go, I can then go over to my sliders and edit. So I can edit just the highlights of this. I can edit the whites. I can edit everything, the contrast, the clarity, the sharpness, all for this spot that I just painted. To easily see where you painted on, just click this mask button down here, and maybe you even want to change this to something like red so that you can see where you painted. And you can paint off by pressing the Option key if you're on a Mac or the Alt key if you're on a PC, and you can see the brush options change. So if I press Option, I want to increase the feathering, maybe increase the size a little bit. Actually, take that back, decrease the size. So I want to just paint off on the castle. Now it looks very dramatic because I'm seeing the mask, that pink mask. I'm going to uncheck that mask in just a minute. I'm just going to get rid of all of this just so that we're editing the sky. And I'm holding Option down. And then when I release Option, I get back to my other brush and I turn off mask. It looks a lot better now. Now it's just adjusting the sky itself. Say you want to add a new brush, something separate than this one. I can choose this new button right here and now start brushing on. So say I want to choose all of this green stuff right here, and I want to boost the exposure and maybe add saturation. I can do that just to the green down here, and I can turn on and off my mask to see where I painted. And then you see these little pin drops. And when I hover over the other one, you can see the mask pop up. To delete one of these brushes that you did, just select one and delete. Just pressing delete on your keyboard. Select delete on your keyboard. Let's move on to these other options. We got our graduated filter and my radial filter. They're very similar in what they do. When I choose graduated filter, it's similar to the linear filter in Lightroom. I'm going to reset all of my options over here. So just change these back to 0, and then I'll drop the exposure. Just click and drag in your image. What happens is on the green side of this edit or of these bars, you're adding the effects that you changed over on the right side sliders. And on the red side, this is just the normal image. So say I want to just edit the top half of this image, I can just click and drag and let go. And I can rotate this by clicking the edge of one of these lines and dragging up or down. I can make it bigger or smaller. So the transition bigger or smaller between the edited version and the non-edited part of this image. And then again, I can just play with these settings over here. So this one might work better for just editing the bushes down here. So let's just move this whole thing by clicking the line in the center and dragging down. I'm going to reset the exposure to 0 and then just increase the saturation and then increase the clarity so that we get lots more detail in the trees down below. When you're shooting landscapes, especially of trees and plants where there's so many little things going on, increasing clarity tends to look really good. The last option is the radial filter. When I click and drag using the radial filter, what happens is a circle is created. I can move it around and resize it by clicking the center and clicking the edges and resizing it. You can kind of see what happens right here. The outside of the circle is what's being edited. We can change that by clicking this outside versus inside button right here. It's using the settings that I used right before for the graduated filter. So this boost of clarity and boost of saturation. So I'm just going to drop those, drop those. This is another way you can actually create a cool vignette. So I'm just going to go outside again and then drop the exposure. And maybe make this circle a little bit bigger. So now we have a cool vignette around this castle. You can do all these other edits as well. So we want to make the outside of the circle super blue, super green, whatever. You can go crazy with this stuff. But basically, it's doing the same thing. You're creating a circle and editing just part of the image. This is good, and I use this a lot actually when I'm editing faces of a group shot. So I'll create a little circle, or I'll use the brush tool to just paint a little circle around someone's face and maybe boost the sharpness, boost the contrast, fix the exposure if their face is in the shade or something like that. That's really when I would use this tool. I use the graduated tool a lot when I want to edit a horizon shot. So when I have a really bright sky or a dark ocean or something like that, and I just want to edit the top or the bottom of an image. So these are all the tools up here that you need to know right now. And in the next lesson, we're just going to talk about what the next step is and how to save images directly from Camera Raw.